The unwanted vow. The cream-colored wedding dress felt like a prison shroud against Serena Winters's skin. At 20, she should have been in her second year at Juilliard, not standing in a bridal suite with her mother fussing over the pearls adorning her chestnut hair. "It's for the best, darling," her mother whispered, avoiding Serena's eyes in the mirror. "Your father's debts, the medical bills. Nathaniel Blackwood was very generous with his offer." Generous, as if purchasing a human being could ever be considered an act of generosity. Serena's fingers trembled as she adjusted the silver bracelet on her wrist, the last gift from her grandmother before cancer took her. The same illness that had bankrupted her family and left them at the mercy of one of the most feared men in the business world. "I've never even had a proper conversation with him, Mother." Serena's voice was barely audible. 3 meetings in his office, and he spoke more to Father than to me. Her mother's hand stilled on Serena's shoulders. "He's complicated. But he's not cruel, Serena. He could have foreclosed on everything, taken our home. Instead, he offered this arrangement." An arrangement, a business transaction with Serena, as the commodity. At 35, Nathaniel Blackwood had built Obsidian Technologies from nothing into a global empire. His genius with artificial intelligence was matched only by his ruthlessness in acquisitions and his infamous emotional detachment. The media called him the Glacier, brilliant but cold, unyielding, and dangerous to those who got too close. "It's time," her father announced from the doorway, his once proud posture now stooped with illness and shame. The guilt in his eyes made Serena straighten her back. She wouldn't make this harder for him. "I'm ready," she lied. The ceremony passed in a blur of faces and voices. Serena moved through it like a marionette, speaking when prompted, signing where directed. Through it all, Nathaniel Blackwood remained an imposing presence beside her. Tall, impeccably dressed in a custom charcoal suit, his angular face revealing nothing. His eyes, an unusual shade of amber, never warmed when they looked at her. Their first touch was when he slid the platinum band onto her finger. His hands were unexpectedly warm, but his touch was clinical, efficient. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the brief kiss he placed on her lips was equally perfunctory. The reception was small but lavish, held at Blackwood's cliffside mansion overlooking the Pacific. Serena stood beside him, accepting congratulations from people she didn't know, business associates, not friends. There was no joy in this gathering, only strategic networking thinly veiled as celebration. "You play the violin," Nathaniel stated, during a rare moment alone, startling her with this acknowledgement of something personal. Serena nodded. "I did. Before everything." "Why did you stop?" The question caught her off guard. "My grandmother's illness, then my father's. There wasn't time, and then we had to sell my instrument." Something flickered in his eyes, so quickly she might have imagined it. A waste of talent is never a good business decision. Of course, everything was business to him, even her. Later, as the reception wound down, Serena found herself standing on the terrace, watching waves crash against the rocks below. The rings on her finger felt heavy, alien. "Your family has left," Nathaniel's voice came from behind her. "The staff will show you to your rooms." Rooms. Plural. Serena turned, confusion momentarily overriding her fear. "We're not sharing." "I have work to complete tonight," he interrupted. "Ms. Patel will assist you with anything you need." As if summoned, an elegant woman in her 40s appeared. "This way, Mrs. Blackwood." The name felt wrong, an ill-fitting costume. Serena followed Ms. Patel through the sprawling mansion, up a curved staircase, and down a hallway to a suite larger than her family's entire apartment. "Your things have been unpacked," Ms. Patel explained. "Mr. Blackwood has arranged for a stylist to supplement your wardrobe tomorrow." When will he? Serena couldn't finish the question, her cheeks burning. Ms. Patel's expression softened slightly. Mr. Blackwood often works through the night. He doesn't expect anything from you this evening. A reprieve, not a resolution. As the door closed behind Ms. Patel, Serena sank onto the edge of the bed, still in her wedding dress. In the silence of her gilded cage, she finally allowed herself to cry, for the life she'd lost, for the future she'd been forced to accept, and for the cold stranger she now called husband. The midnight gift Serena woke to darkness, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar softness of the mattress beneath her. The events of the day crashed back. The wedding, the reception, the tearful goodbye to her parents. She had fallen asleep, still wearing her wedding dress, though someone had removed her shoes and draped a blanket over her. The digital clock on the nightstand read 2:17 a.m. The mansion was silent, save for the distant sound of waves against the cliffs. Serena rose, finally freeing herself from the wedding gown and changing into a simple nightdress from her luggage. Sleep now seemed impossible, her mind racing with questions about what tomorrow would bring. A soft knock at the door startled her. Heart-pounding, she hesitated before approaching. "Yes?" she called, voice barely above a whisper. "It's Nathaniel." His voice was unmistakable, deep and controlled. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Serena wrapped a robe around herself and opened the door. Nathaniel stood in the hallway, still dressed in his dress shirt and slacks from the wedding, though the tie was gone and the top buttons undone. He looked tired, the perfect composure from earlier showing cracks. "I apologize for the hour," he said, "but there's something I need to show you." He held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Serena took it. His palm was warm against hers as he led her through the darkened mansion, down corridors she hadn't seen during her brief tour. They descended a staircase she hadn't noticed before, then stopped before a set of double doors. "Before we enter," Nathaniel said, turning to face her, "I want to clarify something. Our arrangement is unconventional, but I'm not in the habit of collecting people like trophies. Your father approached me for assistance, and this solution seemed mutually beneficial." "Mutually beneficial?" Serena couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "How exactly do I benefit from being sold to a stranger?" Something flickered in Nathaniel's amber eyes. "Your family retains their home and receives the medical care they need. Your father's debts are cleared, and you—" He paused. "You gain security and resources that would have been otherwise unavailable to you." "And what do you gain?" Serena asked. "That's complicated," he answered, his expression unreadable. "But it's not what you're afraid of. I have no intention of forcing anything upon you, Serena." He reached into his pocket and extracted a small velvet box. Serena's breath caught, reminded suddenly of her status as his wife. "This is for you," he said, placing it in her hands. With trembling fingers, Serena opened the box. Inside wasn't jewelry as she'd expected, but a key card and a folded note. She glanced up at Nathaniel questioningly. "Read it," he encouraged. She unfolded the paper, reading by the dim hallway light. "Your talent deserves expression. Your life remains your own. All I ask is your presence, not your submission." "I don't understand," Serena whispered. In response, Nathaniel pushed open the double doors. Lights automatically illuminated a room that made Serena gasp aloud. It was a music studio, professional quality, acoustically designed with instruments that made her heart race. In the center stood a violin case. "May I?" she asked, drawn to it almost involuntarily. Nathaniel nodded. With reverent hands, Serena opened the case. Inside lay a Stradivarius, its wood gleaming in the soft light. Her fingers hovered over it, afraid to touch something so precious. "It's the Giovanni Battista Guadagnini, crafted in 1743, Nathaniel explained. "It belonged to my mother." "I can't accept this," Serena breathed, overwhelmed. "It's worth millions." It's worth nothing sitting unplayed in a vault, he countered. My mother would have wanted it in the hands of someone with genuine talent. Serena finally looked at him directly, searching his face for some hidden agenda. Why would you do this? I reviewed your performance records before agreeing to your father's proposal, Nathaniel said. You were on track for a distinguished career. That talent shouldn't be wasted because of financial circumstances. So this is, what, compensation? She asked, trying to understand. No. For the first time, he seemed to struggle with words. This is respect, and perhaps atonement. He moved to a desk in the corner and pressed a button. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a window overlooking the ocean. The moonlight streamed in, bathing the room in silver. This space is yours, accessible only with that key card. The staff won't enter without your permission. You can come here anytime, day or night. He paused. I have another residence in the city where I spend most weekdays. You'll have privacy here. You're not expecting me to share your bed? Serena asked bluntly, needing clarity. Nathaniel's expression remained neutral. This marriage exists, on paper, for legal and financial purposes. Beyond that, it can be whatever we choose to make it. For now, I'm offering you freedom within these boundaries. He moved toward the door. I'll leave you to explore. The instrument should be properly tuned, but there's a specialist on call if you need adjustments. Nathaniel, Serena called as he reached the doorway. Why did you really agree to marry me? He paused, his back to her. Everyone has ghosts, Serena. Sometimes we make decisions to quiet them. With that cryptic statement, he left, the door closing softly behind him. Alone in the moonlit studio, Serena approached the violin again. With trembling hands, she lifted it from its case, positioning it under her chin. The first note she drew from the strings was hesitant but pure. The second was stronger. By the third, tears were streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the profound relief of reconnecting with the part of herself she thought lost forever. As dawn broke over the ocean, Serena was still playing, the music flowing through her like a river breaking through a dam. In the adjacent room, unknown to her, Nathaniel sat with his eyes closed, listening to the sounds of healing beginning for both of them. Walls of glass 3 weeks into her marriage, Serena had established a routine. Mornings were spent exploring the grounds of the cliffside estate, afternoons in the music studio, and evenings dining alone or occasionally with Ms. Patel, who had gradually warmed to her. Nathaniel remained an enigma, appearing only on weekends and even then, keeping largely to himself in his study. This Friday evening, Serena sat at the massive dining table, picking at her dinner while reading sheet music for a piece she'd been struggling with. The sound of the front door opening and closing echoed through the foyer, followed by Nathaniel's measured footsteps. You're early, she noted as he appeared in the doorway. Usually he didn't return from the city until much later. Board meeting, concluded ahead of schedule. He loosened his tie, looking more disheveled than she'd ever seen him. You're making progress with the Tchaikovsky. Serena glanced up, surprised. You've been listening? The security system records everything, he said, then seeing her expression added, only for review if alarms are triggered. But yes, occasionally I listen. You've recovered your technique remarkably quickly. Thank you for the violin instructor, Serena said, closing her music book. Professor Kimura has been incredibly helpful. Nathaniel nodded, then hesitated at the threshold of the dining room. Would you mind company this evening? The request caught her off guard. Of course not. He took a seat as Ms. Patel appeared, with another plate. The woman seemed unsurprised by his presence, suggesting this had been planned. They ate in awkward silence until Serena gathered her courage. Why artificial intelligence? She asked. What drew you to that field? Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps, that she was initiating conversation. Pattern recognition, he answered after a moment. Human behavior is chaotic but not random. AI can find the underlying patterns, predict outcomes, solve problems that seem unsolvable. Is that why people call you the glacier? Because you approach everything like a calculation? His lips twitched, almost a smile. They call me that because I'm cold and unforgiving in negotiations. The calculation is just how I survive. Survive what? Serena pressed. Nathaniel set down his fork, studying her. You're very direct. We're married, yet I know almost nothing about you, she pointed out. Except what I've read in business journals. He seemed to consider this. What would you like to know? Why do you have 2 residences? Why stay in the city during the week? The penthouse is closer to headquarters. It's practical. That's not a real answer, Serena challenged. Nathaniel's expression tightened, then softened unexpectedly. No, it's not. He stood. Come with me. Curious, Serena followed him through the house to a wing she hadn't explored, ending at a room with a keypad. Lock. Nathaniel entered a code, and the door swung open to reveal what appeared to be an art gallery, walls lined with paintings, sculptures on pedestals. My mother was an artist, he explained as Serena walked among the pieces. These were her works. Some she created, others she collected. Serena stopped before a portrait, a woman with Nathaniel's amber eyes, laughing as she held a small boy on her lap. Is this my mother and me? Yes. One of the few portraits she completed before she died. She was talented, Serena murmured, studying the brushwork. How did she die? Brain aneurysm. I was 8. His voice was flat, clinical, but Serena noticed his hands were clenched at his sides. And your father? Remarried 6 months later to his assistant. Sent me to boarding school. Nathaniel moved to a landscape painting of the very cliffs their home stood upon. This house was my mother's, her sanctuary from my father's world. After she died, he kept it but never visited. When he died 5 years ago, it was the only thing of his I wanted. Understanding dawned on Serena. You stay in the city because this place holds too many memories. Yet I can't bear to sell it, he admitted. Illogical, isn't it? It's human, Serena corrected gently. He turned to her, really looking at her perhaps for the first time. Your father didn't approach me randomly, Serena. Your grandmother, Elena Winters, was one of my mother's closest friends. They studied art together in Paris. Serena stared at him, shocked. My grandmother never mentioned. She wouldn't have. After my mother died, there was a falling out with my father. But when I learned who your father was, who you were, he trailed off. It felt like closing a circle. So this marriage was what, exactly? Honoring a connection between our families? Partly, he acknowledged, but also because I reviewed your performances. Your Sibelius violin concerto at the Young Musicians Competition 3 years ago? For the first time, emotion colored his voice. You played like my mother painted, with your soul exposed. Serena felt her cheeks warm at the unexpected compliment. That still doesn't explain why marriage was your solution to my family's financial troubles. Nathaniel's expression closed again. Business and personal entanglements require legal protection. Marriage provided the cleanest framework. Always the pragmatist, she murmured. It's kept me alive, he said simply. They stood in silence, surrounded by the artwork of a woman long gone but still present in the amber of Nathaniel's eyes, in the sanctuary he preserved despite the pain it caused him. Would you play for me? He asked suddenly. Not recorded. In person. The vulnerability in the request surprised her. Now? He nodded. In the music studio, Serena positioned herself near the window where moonlight spilled across the floor. Nathaniel took a seat in the corner, half in shadow. She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his attention, and began to play. Not Tchaikovsky or Sibelius, but a simple folk melody her grandmother had taught her, one that spoke of longing and homecoming. When she finished, she opened her eyes to find Nathaniel watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Something between wonder and sorrow. "Your grandmother used to hum that while she painted with my mother," he said quietly. I'd forgotten until now. In that moment, something shifted between them. Not romance, not yet, but understanding. The walls surrounding Nathaniel Blackwood were still there, transparent like glass but no less real. Yet for the first time, Serena could see clearly what lay behind them. Not coldness, but carefully contained pain. Not emptiness, but a depth of feeling he'd spent a lifetime learning to control. As they walked back to the main house together, their steps fell into the same rhythm. Neither spoke, but the silence was different now, no longer awkward but companionable. At the staircase they paused. "Thank you," Nathaniel said simply. "For the music." "Thank you," Serena replied. "For the truth." They parted ways to their separate rooms, but the distance between them had narrowed. Just slightly, but enough to matter. Broken Notes. The Autumn Gala for Obsidian Technologies was the social event of the season, bringing together Silicon Valley's elite at the Grand Hyatt downtown. For Serena, it marked her first public appearance as Mrs. Blackwood, a role she'd been dreading since the embossed invitation appeared on her breakfast tray 3 weeks earlier. "You don't have to attend," Nathaniel had told her when she expressed her anxiety. "Our arrangement doesn't require you to perform as the devoted wife." "Won't your absence cause speculation?" she'd asked. Something resembling humor had flickered in his eyes. "I'm known for being unconventional. No one would be surprised." Yet here she was, descending from the limousine in a midnight blue gown, Nathaniel's hand steady at the small of her back as cameras flashed. The past 2 months had seen a gradual thawing between them. Weekly dinners had become nightly conversations. He'd begun working from home on Wednesdays, and she'd caught him watching her practice more than once. "Mr. Blackwood," a reporter thrust, a microphone toward them. "Your mysterious marriage shocked the business world. Care to comment on the rumors that it was arranged to acquire Winters Music Academy's proprietary AI technology?" Serena froze. Her family had never owned any technology company, much less one involving AI. Nathaniel's expression remained impassive. "No comment." He guided Serena inside, his posture rigid. "What was that about?" she whispered once they were in the elevator. "Tabloid nonsense. The media creates narratives when they lack facts." His dismissal was too quick, too practiced. The ballroom was a sea of designer gowns and tailored suits. Serena felt eyes following her as Nathaniel introduced her to a blur of faces, board members, investors, competitors. She played her part, smiling and engaging, while inwardly questioning the reporter's words. "Nathaniel, there you are," a striking woman in her 40s approached, kissing Nathaniel's cheek with familiar ease. "And this must be the bride who's been causing such a stir." "Serena. This is Victoria Reed, our chief financial officer," Nathaniel introduced. "Victoria, my wife, Serena." Victoria's appraising gaze was calculating. "Quite the whirlwind romance, I hear. From bankruptcy to bridal veil in record time." The barb was thinly veiled. Serena maintained her composure. "Life can take unexpected turns." "Indeed." Victoria smiled tightly, "though some turns are more calculated than others." She turned to Nathaniel. "The Japanese delegation is eager to discuss the neural interface, there by the East Bar." As Nathaniel excused himself, promising to return shortly, Victoria's demeanor shifted. "A word of advice," she said, voice lowered. "Whatever you think you know about Nathaniel Blackwood isn't the full picture. Be careful with your trust." Before Serena could respond, Victoria glided away, leaving her alone with growing unease. Making her way to a quiet alcove, Serena pulled out her phone and searched Winter's Music Academy AI technology. The results made her blood run cold. Headlines from tech blogs and business journals from the previous year. Winter's Music Academy pioneers neural interface for enhanced musical learning. Blackwood Eyes. Acquisition of Winter's revolutionary AI technology. Elena Winter's legacy, the AI technology that could transform music education. Her grandmother's music school, the one her father had inherited and subsequently mismanaged, had apparently developed valuable technology. Technology that now, through Serena's marriage, belonged effectively to Nathaniel. She was still staring at her phone when a shadow fell across her. "You found the articles?" Nathaniel's voice was flat. Serena looked up, feeling as though she were seeing him for the first time. Was this what it was all about? The marriage? The violin? The studio? All to acquire my grandmother's technology? His expression remained unreadable. "We should discuss this privately." "Answer me," she demanded, no longer caring about the curious glances from nearby guests. "Not here." His tone left no room for argument. He took her elbow, guiding her toward a private conference room off the main hall. Once inside, he closed the door. "Your grandmother was brilliant beyond her musical talents," he began without preamble. "She developed an interface that could translate neural patterns during musical performance into code, essentially mapping genius into teachable algorithms." "And you wanted it," Serena stated, pieces falling into place. "Yes," he admitted. Initially, Nathaniel paced the length of the room. "When your father approached me for financial help, I saw an opportunity to acquire the technology legally through marriage. The patents would transfer to me through your inheritance rights." The cold calculation of it made Serena's chest tighten. "So everything, the studio, the violin, all of it, was just to ensure I wouldn't contest the acquisition?" "That was my original intent," he acknowledged, his honesty brutal. "But then I heard you play." "What difference did that make?" He stopped pacing, facing her directly. "I realized the technology wasn't what made your grandmother special, or you. It was something no algorithm could capture." For the first time, genuine emotion colored his voice. "I've spent my life trying to program machines to think like humans. But listening to you play made me understand what they can never replicate, the soul behind the notes." "Pretty words," Serena said bitterly. "But you still took the technology." "No," he countered. "I didn't. The patents remain in your name." "I never transferred them." Serena stared at him, disbelieving. "Why would you marry me and not take what you wanted?" "Because what I wanted changed." The admission seemed to cost him. "The night you played your grandmother's melody, I recognized something in you that I've spent my life denying in myself. And I couldn't bring myself to reduce that to lines of code." The door burst open before Serena could respond. Victoria stood there, face taut with urgency. "Nathaniel, there's been a breach. Someone's accessing the neural interface prototype remotely." His demeanor instantly shifted to the cold CEO. "Lock down the servers. Call Owen and the security team." "There's more," Victoria said. "The attack is coming from Serena's old laptop, the one synced to her cloud accounts." Nathaniel turned to Serena, his expression hardening. "Did you share your access credentials with anyone?" "What? No." She stepped back, stung by the accusation. "I haven't used that laptop since before the wedding." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "The timing is suspicious. First, she discovers the truth about the patents, and suddenly we're being hacked." "I had nothing to do with this," Serena insisted. Nathaniel studied her for a long moment, then turned to Victoria. "Implement Protocol Sentinel. And Victoria, this stays between us for now." After the CFO left, Serena confronted him. "You don't believe me." "What I believe is irrelevant. The evidence is circumstantial," she cut in. "If I wanted to steal the technology, why would I use my own laptop?" I'm not an idiot. Perhaps not. But you are hurt and angry with justification. His voice was measured, analytical. So that's it? Serena's voice cracked. The moment there's a crisis, you revert to seeing me as an adversary? Something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, perhaps regret. I can't afford sentiment when my company is at risk. And I can't be married to someone who doesn't trust me. She removed her wedding ring, placing it on the conference table between them. Consider our arrangement terminated. She walked out of the conference room with her head high, though her heart was splintering. The ballroom's lights seemed too bright, the music too loud. She made it to the lobby before Nathaniel caught up with her. Wait, he said, his hand on her arm. Where will you go? Does it matter? Yes. His voice held an emotion she couldn't identify. It matters to me. Serena looked at him, really looked, and saw conflict raging behind his carefully controlled expression. For 2 months, I've tried to understand the man behind the mask. I thought I was beginning to see him, someone wounded, but worthy of trust. Now I don't know if that man exists at all. He exists, Nathaniel said quietly. He's just forgotten how to live without the mask. A security guard approached urgently. Mr. Blackwood, we've traced the breach. It wasn't Mrs. Blackwood's laptop. Someone spoofed her credentials. The actual source is inside our network. Nathaniel's expression shifted. An inside job? Yes, sir. And we've identified the source. It's coming from Ms. Reed's office. The revelation hung in the air between them. Nathaniel turned back to Serena, a quiet storm building in his eyes. I have to handle this, he said, but this conversation isn't over. Yes, it is, Serena replied. Trust broken is like a note played wrong. It changes the entire piece. She walked away, out into the rain-slicked streets, leaving Nathaniel standing in the hotel lobby, the powerful CEO suddenly looking lost for the first time since she'd known him. In the taxi heading back to the cliffside mansion to pack her belongings, Serena pressed her forehead against the cool window. The violin in the studio, her grandmother's legacy, called to her. But some prices were too high, some wounds too deep for even music to heal. Symphony of Trust. 3 days after the gala disaster, Serena sat in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of her former life. Her parents had welcomed her home with worried embraces and careful questions that she'd deflected. How could she explain that her marriage had been built on lies? Yet somewhere along the way, truth had begun to take root. The doorbell rang downstairs. Voices murmured, followed by her mother's footsteps on the stairs. Serena? Her mother appeared in the doorway. There's someone here to see you. Expecting Nathaniel, Serena was surprised when Professor Kimura, her violin instructor, entered instead. Your husband asked me to deliver this, the elderly man said, placing a familiar velvet box on her desk. He said you would understand its significance. After he left, Serena approached the box cautiously. Inside was not the wedding ring she'd returned, but a small data drive and a handwritten note. The truth, all of it. No more walls between us. The choice to return is yours alone. Curiosity, overcoming her hurt, Serena connected the drive to her laptop. It contained 3 folders: Obsidian, Elena, and Nathaniel. The first held internal documents revealing Victoria Reed's attempted corporate espionage, her arrest, and the security protocols implemented afterward. The second contained her grandmother's research journals, correspondence with Nathaniel's mother, and the complete patent documentation for the neural interface technology, all legally transferred back to Serena's name. It was the third folder that made her breath catch. Inside were personal journals spanning decades, beginning with the entries of an 8-year-old boy processing his mother's death through cold, analytical language that broke Serena's heart. Father says emotions are inefficient. He says mother's art was a waste of her intelligence. I must be more logical than she was. I must not cry anymore. Later entries chronicled his rise in business, his deliberate cultivation of the glacier persona, and his first encounter with Elena Winter's research. Elena's technology bridges logic and creativity in ways I've never seen. If machines could understand music as she does, perhaps they could understand human emotion better than I can. The most recent entry was dated the night after their wedding. She plays like she's speaking to something beyond logic, beyond the physical world. Watching her with the violin tonight, I recognized the same light Mother had when she painted. I've spent my life building walls to protect myself from that vulnerability. Yet here I am, inviting it into my home, into my life. The technology no longer matters. Something far more valuable and terrifying has taken its place. The final document was a video file labeled simply, "For Serena." With trembling fingers, she clicked play. Nathaniel appeared, seated in the music studio, the moonlit, ocean visible through the window behind him. "I've never been good with words that matter," he began, looking directly at the camera. "Business negotiations, technical specifications, these I understand. But this," he gestured vaguely. "This requires a language I never learned." He stood, moving to touch the violin case that still sat open on its stand. "My mother used to say that art was truth without filters. I've spent my life building filters, creating distance between myself and anything that might hurt. When your father approached me about his financial troubles, I saw an opportunity to acquire valuable technology. I didn't see you." He paused, his expression uncharacteristically open. "But then I heard you play. I saw you read in the garden, watched you find joy in small things I'd trained myself to ignore. You made me question a lifetime of carefully constructed barriers." His hands clenched, then relaxed. "At the gala, when Victoria implicated you, I reverted to my default: suspicion, emotional distancing. It was wrong. The breach was her attempt to steal the technology and frame you, hoping to drive a wedge between us that would nullify our marriage and the legal protections it provided the patents." He looked directly into the camera again. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that whatever happens next, the patents are yours, the studio is yours, your freedom is yours, and if you choose to return—" His voice faltered slightly. "I would like the chance to learn a new language with you, one without walls or masks." The video ended, leaving Serena staring at her reflection in the dark screen, tears streaming down her face. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "The cliffs at sunset. One last conversation if you're willing." And as twilight painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, Serena's taxi wound up the familiar coastal road. The mansion stood silhouetted against the darkening sky, but Nathaniel wasn't there. Following instinct, she made her way down the path to the cliffs, where a solitary figure stood watching the waves crash below. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, his expression carefully neutral, yet unable to hide the hope that flickered in his eyes. "You came," he said simply. "I watched the video," Serena replied. "Read the files." "All of them?" "Yes." Nathaniel nodded, his gaze returning to the horizon. "Then you know everything. The calculation that started this and the unexpected variables that changed the equation." "Is that what I am?" Serena asked, moving to stand beside him. "A variable in your equation?" "No," he answered softly. "You're the proof that the equation itself was flawed." They stood in silence, watching the last light fade from the sky, stars emerging overhead. "Victoria is facing industrial espionage charges," he said eventually. "The technology is secure, and legally yours again." "That's not why I came," Serena said. Nathaniel turned to her, really looking at her. "Why did you?" Instead of answering, Serena reached into her bag and withdrew a folded paper. I found this in my grandmother's journal. It was meant for you, written before she died. Nathaniel took it with careful hands, unfolding it to reveal Elena's elegant script. Nathaniel, if you're reading this, you've met my granddaughter. She has her father's hands, but my heart. Like your mother, she speaks through art what cannot be said in words. We both know the walls you've built around yourself. They've made you successful but solitary. Catherine would have wanted more for you than success. She would have wanted joy. Perhaps Serena can show you the way back to it, as she has shown so many through her music. Not all legacies are patents and properties. Some are the courage to feel again. His hands trembled slightly as he refolded the letter. She knew, he murmured. Even then, she knew I would find you. Or that I would find you, Serena countered. She took a step closer. The little boy in those journals, the one who stopped crying because his father told him to, he deserved better. That boy is long gone, Nathaniel said quietly. I don't think so. Serena placed her hand over his heart. I think he's still here, behind all those walls, waiting for permission to exist again. Something broke in Nathaniel's carefully composed expression. I don't know how to be any other way. This version of me, calculating, controlled, it's kept me safe, successful. But has it made you happy? Serena asked. The question hung between them, unanswered but understood. Slowly, hesitantly, Nathaniel raised his hand to cover hers, where it rested against his chest. The studio was never meant to be a bribe, he said softly. It was an offering, the only kind I knew how to make. A space where something beautiful could exist in a life that had forgotten beauty. And now? Serena asked. Now I'm offering something harder, the truth without calculation or strategy. I married you for advantage, but I care for you because of who you are. The choice to stay or go is yours. But if you stay, he took a deep breath. If you stay, I want it to be a real marriage, not an arrangement. I want to learn how to be the man my mother would have raised, not the one my father created. Serena studied his face, the vulnerability that had never been there before, the amber eyes that held both hope and fear. I can't promise it will be easy, she said finally. We both have healing to do. I'm not asking for easy, Nathaniel replied. Just possible. In answer, Serena reached into her pocket and withdrew her wedding ring. New vows, she said, holding it between them. Not for convenience or calculation, but for possibility. Nathaniel took the ring, his fingers warm against hers. To possibility, he agreed, sliding it back onto her finger. As night enveloped the cliffs, they walked back toward the house together. In the distance, the studio lights glowed softly, beckoning. Will you play something? Nathaniel asked. Not for an audience or a recording, just for us. Serena nodded, feeling the rightness of it. In the studio, she lifted the violin that had become an extension of herself. Nathaniel took a seat nearby, close enough to touch but giving her space to create. The melody that emerged was neither mournful nor triumphant, but something in between. A song of endings and beginnings, of walls being dismantled stone by stone, of trust being rebuilt note by note. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffs, relentless, powerful, yet also healing in their constancy. Inside, two people who had entered a marriage of convenience began the more difficult journey toward something genuine, finding in each other's broken places not weakness, but the potential for a stronger bond. As the final note faded into silence, Serena lowered the violin. Nathaniel stood and crossed the short distance between them. This time, when he took her hand, there was nothing clinical or calculated in his touch. Beautiful, he said simply. Serena smiled, seeing in his eyes not the cold businessman, the world. New, but the man emerging from behind the walls, still learning, still uncertain, but finally genuinely present. A new composition, she told him. I think I'll call it Symphony of Trust. In the quiet of the studio, with moonlight streaming through the windows and the distant sound of the ocean as their witness, they began again, not from a place of fear or advantage, but from truth. The journey ahead would have its dissonance and broken notes, but also harmony more powerful for having been hard won. And in that moment, it was enough.